All right. Welcome, Will Van Inwagen. Um, so it's a real pleasure to have you here today. This is the first time I'm doing this whole streaming thing. It's kind of exciting. And I think the whole point with live streaming is that it's live. So it's going out to YouTube, it's going out to Facebook, and we're here to have a conversation about what it takes to build a community of practice. Will has been doing this for I don't know how many years, but I'm going to guess quite a few years, and most significantly, most recently, at Enlivening Edge and some other projects. And so the intention today is just to really surface some of what you've learned in that journey of trying to bring people together in intentional and co-creative ways. I want to just start with your experience working with Enlivening Edge, and um, maybe just share a little bit about the nature of Enlivening Edge,
Yeah,
what the intention is, and just a little bit about how that process um, of developing that community has been.
thank you. And it's a pleasure and fun to talk about this because it's been very near and dear to me. Uh, so, what I'm realizing, Lorenz, is that how my life has taken different journeys and steps along the way. Uh, my past experiences, what I did is that trained as a facilitator, and that's what I've been doing for a very long time in groups. I uh, visited and lived in intentional communities, and that's where I really learned about the facilitation part, open space, all of these others about how groups come together. Because it's really important when you're in an intentional community for people to be able to come together, connect, and be able to work things out. And so I moved up to Washington to help my daughter that just had a baby, and she was in the military. And so we moved up here, and I wanted I wanted to start getting back into the game. And then I met Aaliyah, and she's the editor of Enlivening Edge magazine. And she said, you've had all this facilitation and stuff like that, and you want something new. So she says, how about, come and volunteer for Enlivening Edge? So Enlivening Edge got started about after Frederick Lou's book, Reinventing Organization. They started up about 6 months afterwards that it started, and George Poor was the founder of it, to bring people together to help, like he said, every movement needs like Gandhi, a newspaper. And so that's what the purpose of Enlivening Edge was to bring the news and the information and connect people in around next stage organizations and the movement towards quote unquote teal.
Hmm.
Um, so what that I joined Enlivening Edge, and it was very interesting. They run by holacracy, but one of the things, Lorenz, I was very surprised about, there wasn't much between interaction, between talking. There was a lot of business and how do we run the magazine and all these other sort of cool stuff. Yet I'm a human oriented person, and where do we talk about these sort of things and how do we bring them up? And so um, I created what was called a tribe space, where we had the opportunity to come and sit down and talk about what was going on. Forget about the job, just come in and talk about where we're at, what's going on, what are our frustrations, and this sort of stuff. And then the other part was that the community engagement part of Enlivening Edge was through Facebook. And Facebook to me was not a proper medium to start conversations. So prior to this, I was working with Peter Block and his work around the community engagement. And I love Peter Block's work. And so what I did is had the group there in Cincinnati help me and another person, Ryan Schoenbeck, And what we did is to create a community where we could start talking to each other. It's fascinating to me that, and that's what I love, is I wanted to find out about people. I didn't want to write something on Facebook and have these short posts. So what we did is we cobbled together a forum, a way of inviting people, and we broke it up into eventually two things. One is to bring in a storyteller that could tell about their story, their journey into next stage organizations, what worked, what didn't. And so we've gone through over 30 people and more, probably 50 now, of people that are their journey to everyday persons. And it's like Lorenzo, we said before, what do I go through? What is it like to start this next stage organization? And what is the human component to this? That's what's really important. The other part was on the third Thursday. What we did is to have a segment where we could pose a question. And at first, we started talking about uh, Peter Block's 6 principles. And so this is the basis of what started. And what happened is that from that, it's just, I love it, is that where I just was in Washington, knew very few people, and now I have friends all over the world. And when I went to 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when I went to a conference in Greece, when I went to Europe, I stayed at all the people's places that I had met in the community conversations. And now I have even more people worldwide. And so what this brought me to next was that Jens and Brett Sadler, um, we wanted to be able to bring together a group of people around the human centric side of organizational change. And that's where we really feel that's vastly important, is it's the heart. And this is what it's all about. All of this stuff in it can be complex and stuff like that, but it's really not. And that's why we use Peter Block's modem and approach is connection before content. Let's connect and see how we're human beings. And Lorenz, as people came into the community conversation, we got great feedback. They would say, I feel like I belong. I feel safe here. I can talk to other people. I feel supported. And that's when you know that the container is set. And Lorenz, that I think is the number one thing. It happens before you even invite the first person. It's the people that are starting this to sit down and to build what I call the energetic container. That's what you're inviting people into. And that's what we got the feedback. Well, without the first time they show up and they tell us this. And so that's when you know that you have the energetic container there. And then and what that takes is that the people that are co-creating this container of being able to support, talk, be there with each other. And that's where you move from what I call from the I is that, and I know I've done this, is that where I've had some ideas. And Lorenz, it was very challenging for me to let go of well, I brought this idea, I started this business, and I can feel myself shivering and almost hesitating. Well, there's us now, and bringing together the we, and it takes some really specific and capacities and skills to be able to develop that proficiency, that capacity to move from, yes, the I is needed. It's absolutely needed. Yet then how do you fold into and allow the group consciousness to come out and to be able to speak to this? And we learned this in the community conversations. The hosting team is really funny. There was this one host team member that would constantly come in and bitch about, I don't feel like I belong and I don't do this. And we go, oh my God. Then finally one time, Ryan and I realized, oh my God, he is a messenger of this is what people are saying outside. And so we really need to craft. He was a messenger hey, the universe is saying, hey, this is what people want. This is their issue. This is what's going on. Pay attention. They don't feel like they belong. So co-create the container where they feel like they belong. They feel like they're open. And that's the really challenging but fun part, is that the universe speaks through the different people, however they receive the message or whatever, and to be able to craft something. And this is where, again, control, because I used to be in law enforcement for the National Park Service, is to let go of control of how you think things are going to be, and feel into that, and go into that, and then that itself then goes back into and feeds back into, I feel stronger. I feel more confident in myself.
So can you, yeah, this is so interesting. Can you say a few words about your process of co-creating this container? Because I agree that a fundamental part of bringing people together in a space where they feel invited to go into deeper places of conversation and connection is really about that container. And what I'm hearing is that you started out with a container that you created and then kind of transitioned into a co-created container. And I'm wondering what that means specifically, as in
Yeah,
what it looks like.
great question. And be very transparent. Um, it's something I want for myself. I wanted to feel like I belonged.
Hmm.
I wanted to feel, Lawrence, that I connect.
Hmm.
I didn't feel that. Um, it's what I wanted for myself. I spent a lot of time, and as a law enforcement ranger for the National Park Service, you're out there, and um, you depend upon yourself because you've got so much acreage and stuff like that with it. And so, and as I said, when I realized this later, after going through a lot of this for many years, is that it's what I wanted. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted to find out about people. I wanted to build friendships. And so I um, I needed to give. There we go. I needed to give myself what I wanted, and typically I project out there and saying, "Oh, you give me this safety, you give me this support, you do this for me," and not taking responsibility that it's me that's responsible for creating my own safety, my own container. So I had to originally and first uh, build it for myself, and then when that got built, then it's amazing. Uh, the right people, places, and things. I really believe in David Hawkins' work of power versus force, and there's an attractor energy field out there. If you ever, it's a great book, and it's all about energy and the attraction and the levels of consciousness, and there's the law of attraction and all this other sort of stuff that you attract what you're doing, and so as that momentum got building, then more and more people came in. And then, like we talked about earlier, that's when the fun starts. Is that as soon as you bring in another person, you start getting differences. And this is where from my past skills of when I was in law enforcement, after I got out of law enforcement, um, by it's another thing that helped build me to who I am now, is that I experienced a lot of violence, a lot of death, and so I left my law enforcement career with a big case of PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome, and after seeing so much violence and death and personal stuff that went on, and so what I did was to this helps me, that this is what I want. How can I help others? And one of the primary things, as soon as you get two people together, you get differences. That's what happens. And so, uh, I many years ago, well, 15 years ago, I went to and became a facilitator for Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communications, and spent 10 days, intense 10 days with him, learning, NBC and those things like that. And so there's some, you start with your purpose and you have your vision, and then it's that. as soon as you get people together, how do we allow another person's differences, another person's ideas? It's like, how do we allow that one guy that was constantly complaining and to bring something into the conversation that we totally disagreed with, totally did? How do we hold the space to do that? And
Mm.
so, you can develop a way. There's many ways and means of to being able to talk that through. And I learned this most specifically, as I said, there was 3 men that we wanted to start a human-centric community of practice, and so we eventually got to over 60 people in it, and, uh, we learned such tremendous things out of this is that, again, we didn't place in the ability to have differences, and part of the other thing is that it's all about emergence, all about being in the present moment, is that you can't create a structure. Oh, you can, like holacracy, and then you put things around it. Yet life isn't that way, Lorenz. It's a naturally evolving, growing thing. And so, what I, as starter, or what the 3 of us as starters, we needed to and had to let go of the rigidity of how we saw things, and then flow with it, and be able to let go of our visions, and to be able to sit down and talk about it, and where, what's working, what's not working. A really, one of the storytellers, Francois, he really helped me to see this, is that I didn't realize, and we don't realize, the enormity of our unconscious patterns and beliefs that get brought up into an endeavor. And that's why the group is so needed in developing that element of trust, between each other, is because when you do that, then, um, Lorenz, you can tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Will, can we pause and talk about this?" And that, can, that, uh, you know, that I feel that it feels like there's a lot of controlling going on here, where we can bring out very vulnerable, very open things and talk about them, and then looking at them. And that's what I did with the COP, was that, all of my patterns of controlling, of making, of I was so desperate. Oh, there we go. It's the mother founder syndrome. This is my baby. And I tell you, Lorenz, I became vicious.
Mm.
I became like Mama Bear. You're not going to mess with my, cub. And so it's, well, it's not your cub. That's the whole thing, is when you're creating something, it's a vision that comes into you, through you, but it's not yours. And that's the attachment that I had to it, was enormous. And so, uh, that's, some of the things of just being able to let go of attachment around something, and then to what is emergent, what is flowing. That's where it goes back into the we space of being able to, oh my God, what's coming in, and checking and stopping and pausing. And, there's, it's just amazing, the intricacies of what's needed. And I'm still learning, and growing in this, and trusting that the universe, the people that you're working with, that, uh, that vision, it's going to be even better than you originally thought it was. However, like we talked earlier, that song "Trust in the Unknown," and that's an amazing muscle that I'm, you know, in a great gym working out.
Yeah, and so I'm just hearing about the complexity of bringing people together and
Yeah.
creating a truly co-creative environment. And I'm wondering about, do in this process of building the community practice, or building the conversational spaces on Enlivening Edge, were you working with any kind of specific process? Were you just bringing people onto calls, and then allowing an emergent process? Like, how are you finding that space between allowing for an emergent process and also providing enough structure to guide that process.
Thank you. That's it. It's balance. And I want to say right off is that humans in our mind tend to make it more complicated than it really is. It's all about love. Uh, I love being with people. I love meeting people. I love sharing with people and growing. That's what it's really about. That's why I started it, is to find out more. I love making friends, and it's really cool making friends all around the world. Whoa, it's really neat. So that's really what's at the heart of it. Is it to that kiss? Keep it simple. Uh, that's why we started off with using Peter Block's in a small group methodology. And it's the thing, though, is it, and this is what I'm learning, is that and delving more into the balance between the divine masculine and divine feminine. And it's really important that in the masculine, it's not the gender, it's the energy around the divine masculine and divine feminine. Everything starts from love. That's my basic premise, my basic belief. And so it's the love of, it's Lorenz, you embody it. It's the love of what you're doing and what you and Natasha, you can feel it, you can sense it, of what's, sutra is all about. It's just, you glow, buddy. you know, that's what brings people to you. Then you bring the structure will come as a part of it. I had a desire to start a community of practice. I had a desire for the community conversations. You have a desire. It's that passion within you. That's the divine feminine, the nurturing, the creativity. That's where it all starts. Then it's like you planted the seed. It's like I'm a gardener. I planted some peas. Yet, if I don't start putting some strings up and giving them some directions, otherwise they'll all clump into a group and it becomes a mess. And so, but the structure is developed accordingly. Is that, oh, I need this. Oh, we need that. Yet, I'm going to pause for a moment because there's something that's coming up here. Is that there we go. I just said it. You have to pause, and we go into this headlong rush of, oh, I've got to get this done, and oh, I've got to create this community, and oh, we've got over 60 people, and end results, and this and that, and no, to pause, and that's where Francois really helped, is saying, okay, let's reevaluate. Let's not have attachment to something. Let's let go. That saying, let go, let God. Let's see where we are. Let's take some moment, feel into this, and then uh, where do we go from there? And then the universe and everything will bring it. It brought in, it's why I was doing Peter Block's work before I started the community conversations. It's beautiful at the structure. And then as things grow and become more, quote unquote, seemingly complex, what it is that it's one thing expanding to the next. However, there is an essential point that is needed, Lorenz, and it's the onboarding of people that are new. And this is a known phenomenon, that there's that group of people that start something and then they become a clique. And then without knowing it, there's the inside group and the outside group. And without even being aware of it, that this is what I learned in the community practice, is that, oh my God, well, you were the stewards and we're not. And so we didn't develop an onboarding system to where they could learn. And that's where that every organization, everything, you need to know what it's about, what's going on, learn about it. And then to for one purpose only, how do you resonate with this? Is this something that is in your heart too? And is it something that you can add to? Great. Then you get to feel the energetic component, the Natasha Lorenz love. And if you're ignited by that, then great. Once that gets met, Then it's the introduction of that. I don't even want to say a full member. It's that you feel like you can contribute, that, there's something, and, you come in and, oh, I have this skill and I have this ability. And that's what I learned in being in Enlivening Edge and some holacracy things, is that in other organizations I worked with, is that there's that tendency, is that, like, I started the community conversations and I just went off, and it goes back to we. I went off and I did my role and I did my thing. I wasn't checking back in, and it's a learned process of what is the greater good asking for here? Okay, well, you have some great ideas, you do some wonderful things. What do we need as a collective, as a group, to make this happen? And again, once the container is built where you can come in, and it takes a little bit of time to trust and be able to be aware of what is needed, then you can come back and sense, feel into what is needed next. And then the eyes go out and do their eye thing. And then bees coming into the collecting the pollen, collecting the thing, and then coming back in, all for the benefit of the hive.
So, in the context of something like your Enlivening Edge community conversations, what does it mean to sense into that? What
Yeah.
wants to emerge? What's next?
Well, that's where Aaliyah and Eric really helped a lot in this latest evolution. And really cool news is that they're going to be developing, Enlivening Edge is developing a community where what we saw happening in the community conversations, that there wasn't a place to follow up and continue conversations. And so um, that's what's needed, is that uh, that space. I just went on a side note. Could you just refresh me of the original question you just asked?
Yeah,
Uh,
just how do you as a community sense
oh,
into what's next? What
yeah,
wants to emerge?
yeah. That's the practice, is that you stop talking. You center yourself. It's an actual practice. You let go of your. It's moving out of your head. When we're doing things in uh, community and work sort of stuff, we're primarily in our head, which is okay. It's needed. However, it's the letting go of the mind and then slowing down and dropping into our heart. And that's where it's at. That's where the message is, and that's where it's coming in. And then as you drop into your heart, then Lorenz, what's going to happen is that you drop even further into your instinct, into your gut. That's what's going to tell you. And it's a I've been involved in many for a long time in many we spaces, and it's an art, it's a practice. It's something new, it's something different. That, I think, is what is really key. We get focused in on the business, we get focused in on the doing. We don't realize, Lorenz, that the energetic aspect, which is where it all starts from, is of primary importance, and of allowing and spending time, because people feel uncomfortable just sit there not doing anything. It's antithetical to human, and especially to Westerners. It's let's do something. No, this is where, part of it's a presence practice. We help the other members that aren't familiar with it to drop in and to be present to what is. And in IOE, that's what I'm working with this group, is that how do you do this? How do you develop things? How do you start when I feel something in my gut? What is that? And that I even have a feeling in my body. A lot of people don't even aware of their feelings in their body. It's a process of becoming aware of that feeling of, oh man, I got this tension in my heart, and those are signals that they tell you something. And so you're developing this capacity to A, be in the present moment, and B, let go of your shit and allow what really needs to come in, and that you're just a vessel. You're just a vessel. And, I love Rumi, is that I am the flute that God plays through, and my job is to clean the crap out of the flute that I put there.
And so I really resonate with this process of bringing in the body and bringing what's present for you into the space. And I'm wondering what has been your experience with inviting people into that process, inviting people into that type of communication and exchange in a group
Yeah.
space. I'm assuming we're mostly talking about Zoom conversations, right?
Yes, and that this is
Yeah.
yeah, and Lorenz, this is what's really freaky. And no, there is nothing that can replace when you're sitting there in the physical field of another human being. There's no. However, we are energy, and of doing years and years of Zoom and Skype calls and stuff like this, I'm very good at sensing energy. You can really, really feel the energy of it, and so that it's there. And I'm surprised, Lorenz, is that to be front with you, is that people are hungry for this. This is what people want. We have this assumption of we're all these uptight type of people and stuff. Lorenz, that's why I feel COVID was one of the best blessings in the world. People may not say agree, but it doesn't make a difference. Is that we saw what happens when we isolate each other, and the desire, the need, the intensity for human contact is ginormous. That's who we are. We're humans. So it's our own cultural bias, that male thing that I don't need anybody, I don't need anything, and bullshit. No, we need connection. That's what we are in real ultimate spiritual terms. We're one. We've separated ourselves from each other, and that's this whole process of moving towards greater levels of unity and coherence within ourselves and within each other. This is, Lorenz, the mind wants to make it complicated. It's natural. We want to love, we want to support, we want to connect. It's our natural abilities, it's our natural affinity to connect and to belong. And that's why I love what you're doing, is developing. See, this is the nuance. You've got the heart. It's that developing, and that's why people are drawn to sutra. Look at the success that you have, and then you know that's why your goal, you're going to meet it and go beyond, is because the desire, the need is there. And it's that uh, there's a resonance. If you did your sutra, on Hawkins' model, I bet you're up in the 600 level, which is all 600 just means that you're embodying the very concepts of love. You're walking your talk. And so that's what people are drawn to. And so what it falls back to is that Lorenz, you and Natasha did, I don't know a lot of your personal background, but must have done a lot of personal work to get to where you are now. And so that's the attractor, is that you did this and now it's growing to the next level, and then it's growing to the next level. And energetically, people can trust sutra. They know it. So there's an affinity. They're drawn to it around that. Yet there is and there isn't. Is that you're continuing to hold that energetic uh, container, and then that's what there we go. That's where sutra is going to grow. Is that Natasha and Lorenz are magnificent people, great, but look at now the new sutra and the energy and the power and the groundedness and the love that's in this new sutra. This is what you're doing. You're just saying, hey, we're going to the next level, and you've developed the capacities, the competencies, and the energy behind the essence of what sutra is. So I would like you to just tell me, so to affirm what is that, what is Sutra bringing out into the world?
Hmm. I think you just said it. Sutra is bringing love into the world.
Thank you.
Our whole journey has just been about understanding what that means in a
Yeah.
practical context. What's possible, and I think the simplest distillation of that is really that love is presence. It's communication. And communication
Thank
is
you.
is communion. We have this
Yeah.
idea that communication is just about what's spoken, but communication is about communion with everything that's in a space. And often, I think this is the challenge with a lot of spaces, is that there's a lot in the space that is um, you know not spoken, that but communicated anyway. It's in
Yes.
the space, it's not spoken, but it's communicated anyway. And
Yeah.
that's what's missing, is because it is in the space, it's still felt. It has an influence, and people respond to that, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously.
Unconsciously. Yeah.
and
Thank you.
and and for us, love, in the context of what we're
Ah,
talking about, is about becoming present to what's in a space,
oh, thank,
and em-
thank you.
allowing that, embracing it, accepting it, and making that part of the communication, part of what creates connection. Because often those things in the space that are there in the space, that's what creates the disconnect. And that's really, you asked me what a sutra about. That sutra is really about that, about really creating this quality of connection between people, and really an inquiry into how do you do that. How do you do that online? How do you do that in a world where we're instantly connected, over Zoom, over many different kinds of platforms like Sutra, and how can a platform, like specifically like Sutra, somehow support deeper levels of connection and communication.
I'm gonna. I want to. I'm gonna make a suggestion in your languaging.
Hmm.
How can you're no? You are being it, Lauren.
Thank
So
you.
let it go. It's it's like you're growing, and how can you're a seed, you're a plant, you're growing, and you're saying to yourself, "Well, how can we grow bigger?" And it's natural, You
Hmm.
can't stop it, Lorenz. It's, you're already. That's a. It's a. But it's subtle, but it's very important. You see, you were talking about doing, and doing doesn't get you anything. You're
Hmm.
being love.
Hmm.
There's a whole world of difference. That little subtle difference. How do we
Hmm.
do this? No, no. Yeah, doing is required. It's both. It's a balance, but it's inspired action that comes from that love that drives you, that love that drives Sutra. And
Hmm.
so it's you're being the change you want to see in the world, and what you're bringing in is that um, the the tools, the capacities that is needed. See, and wow, it's really interesting. Acknowledge the heart is there, the love is there. There is no doubt in my mind. Now it's that uh, that's why sutra needs to grow. There's a huge demand for sutra like um, things. I'll just put it general. Is that people want this? There's a voracious need for it. How do we connect with each other on a human centric level? And and it's great because people are brought to the processes and stuff like that. But what they really are wanting, Lorenz, is the love and the compassion and the nurturance that you and Natasha and the rest of the group, that's what they want. It's the mother essence.
Hmm.
That's what they're there for. And they would that's the least path of resistance is that, okay, let's learn this and let's do this. Yet the real yearning, the real desire is they want that love and they want to bring it out. And as a result of going through this and stuff like that, then they trust, they start to, that's what you do, is that you're a teacher in the truest sense of the word, is that you teach them what they need to have already within themselves.
Hmm. Thank you, Will.
You're
I
welcome.
really appreciate really appreciate this conversation and your words, and just to, to be witnessed in this journey of creating sutra, but really, we started this conversation before we started recording, talking about stepping into the unknown. And I think that's really at the heart of this kind of work for everybody who's in this space. You whatever, there's so many different labels and terms for people bringing more love into the world in one way or another. Maybe it's connection, maybe it's healing, maybe it's
Yeah.
collaborative intelligence in an organization. These are all different versions of what I might call love, and
Yeah.
I think all of them revolve around stepping into the unknown, stepping into a calling, something that is emerging for you that you don't know how to do, because, or maybe you do know how to do it, but you don't know how to do it. There's this
You got it.
subtle there's this subtle polarity there, in the sense of, I think, what you're talking about, the being and the doing. That in your mind you don't know how to do it, but in your being, it's who you are.
Thank you.
And when you're in that place, it's what emerges. And that's it can be a subtle and tricky road, for your average human being to
I'm gonna
step into.
insert something there. It's a
Mm,
subtle and tricky road for your mind.
mm,
The
mm.
heart knows what to do.
The
It
heart knows
just
what to do.
yeah. It's this thing up here that, in my sense of, control, that I gotta do this, me, my ego and me wanting this. No, no. It, it's very simple when it comes to our heart. It's our mind that creates these little scenarios. Oh, it's complicated, so therefore I have to think it through. I have to work it out. Bullshit. No, it's the only hard work is, mine. I love you, and now can you go and do a crossword puzzles?
I believe that's why they invented crossword puzzles.
It is.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, yes.
thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you
You're
for
welcome. I
just sharing your journey. I know you are absolutely a traveler on this path, and
thank you.
I really appreciate you sharing some of your hard-won insights and wisdom with us.
And I thank you. And it's nice, Lorenz. We're all in this together, and this is what's happening. You suture me with this and that. Yet we're all working towards that common goal of seeing that of unity, wholeness, bringing things together, and that's what is needed to bring our society and our world into its next, what I call this new earth. So thank you.
Mm, thank you.
I appreciate you.